Hello everyone, this is Mr. Slomka again, and this is going to be 10.5 video 2 of 3. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about some story problems. Before we get started on those story problems though, I wanted to remind you about some vocabulary terms. So in the first video we had talked about the definitions for permutation and combination, and I wanted to bring those up again. For permutation and a combination, they are going to both calculate the number of possible outcomes for a situation. So these are going to be big numbers, not small decimals like a probability, but a large number instead. The only difference between a permutation and a combination is, in a permutation, order matters, or order is important. For a combination, order does not matter. Order is not important. You could jumble up the order, and it would still basically be the same situation. This fact right here becomes incredibly important when we start looking at these story problems. So let's start off with a nice basic one. Our first story problem says, every morning Becca wakes up and does the same 4 things. She brushes her teeth, she takes a shower, she eats breakfast, and she gets dressed. Today, Becca woke up late and can only do 2 of those things. So the first question is, does order matter? And so for some of you, you might think, with those 4 options, it doesn't really matter because as long as you get all 4 of them done before you get to school, that's good enough. And I agree with you for the most part, but I also happen to know that there's a couple of situations in here where things could be a little bit interesting or a little bit unacceptable. So I want to take a look at those and I want to point them out to you. So I'm going to decide that yes, order does matter, and I'm going to try to prove it to you as well. Let's take a look at some of the outcomes for Becca's morning, and I'm going to try to show you a couple that are going to be a little bit more interesting. So let's take a look at this case right here. So what I have listed for you is I have brush her teeth and then take a shower. That sounds pretty normal. And if I flipped it, take a shower and then brush your teeth, I really don't see a big difference between these two right here. So that's not our best example. Let's do another one. What if we brush our teeth and then we eat breakfast? That is okay, but it's certainly not my favorite, because what if I had orange juice for breakfast and now it wouldn't taste very good? I would much rather do this, where I eat breakfast and then brush my teeth. That way my orange juice will taste good and my breath will be fresh for school. So I like that one a little bit better. So this one's definitely leaning more towards order it being a bit more important. Let's take a look at another one. So now another option that we have is we can also brush our teeth and get dressed. Now I think that this one's a particularly good one. This one might be the one that I would pick. Because you would be dressed and ready to go out, and your breath would smell good, so people would know that you were fresh and clean and ready to go. So let's take a look at a couple more. So now this time what we're going to do is we're going to focus on taking a shower first. So taking a shower first and brushing your teeth, once again, that sounds pretty good, but wouldn't it be great to leave the house with being dressed? So maybe that one's still not my favorite choice right there. We could also take a shower and eat breakfast. That one's a good one, but once again, getting dressed sounds like a pretty great option. So let's do that one as well. Take a shower and then get dressed. I like that one a lot. That one also is another high contender for one of the choices that I would pick if I only had to choose 2. Let's take a look at a couple more. Let's say this time we're going to focus on eating breakfast. You could eat breakfast and brush teeth. Once again, a better choice than brushing your teeth first and then eating breakfast. You could also eat breakfast and then take a shower. That one right there is, I could either have it or leave it. It's not that big of a deal. And then once again, breakfast and getting dressed. That one's an important one. I like that one as well. Now here's where things get particularly interesting. So now my next one, I'm going to focus on getting dressed. If you haven't been able to tell already, I think that the getting dressed one is particularly important. So let's start with that. So if we get dressed, one thing we could do is we could brush our teeth. That one is very similar to this one, and there's not a lot of difference, so I like that one, but it's not a big deal. Here's a very important one. What if you got dressed and then you took a shower? That one's a particularly interesting one because right there, what's going to happen is that you're going to put your clothes on and then you're going to hop into the shower, and now you're going to be walking around all day in soaking wet clothes, which I'm not a huge fan of. So that one right there should really prove to you that order is certainly important. Last one. Get dressed and then eat breakfast. Also a good one. Let's count them up. So now right here what I have is I have 4 different columns, and there's 3 different options per column. 4 times 3 is going to be 12. Now if you wanted to get that same exact 12 a different way, what you could have also done is done it the way that we used to do it at the beginning of chapter 10. Remember that what we have is we have 2 options, so we could fill that in with 2 blanks. How many things could Becca choose for her first option? And there are 4 of them. How many things could Becca choose for her second option now that she's already used one and there are only 3 left? 4 times 3 is also 12. So that is an old way that we used to get the exact same information, and that is because when we would do this work right here, we were using what is called a simple permutation. When order matters, that means that what we're talking about is a permutation, not a combination. All right, now let's do our last piece right down here. Part C right here, it says use algebra to calculate the number of possible outcomes. So now in this case, I'd like to use the actual permutation. So because order matters, we are going to use a capital P and not a capital C. Now we're going to fill in two small numbers that are going to go on either side of our capital P. The first number is going to be our total number of options that are available to us, and we had 4 of them. And then our second number right here is going to be the number of those options that we will be choosing. And so that is going to be 2. We're going to be able to have time to pick 2 options. So 4p2 is going to be something that we're going to want to calculate. That would be 4 factorial over 4 minus 2 factorial. When you do that work, you are going to end up with the 12 again. It is going to give us the exact same answer that we saw by counting out our outcomes here or using our simple permutation that we have right here. So that's very, very nice. Now also, if you look on your calculator, you should be able to find a button right next to the exclamation point that will do this work for you. So I don't know exactly what calculator you're working with, so I don't know if you'll where exactly to find that P button, but you should be able to find it very, very close to wherever your exclamation point is. So that one's a really, really good one. Okay, this is definitely our longest example. Let's see if we can do a couple a little bit more quickly. So our second example that we have right here is going to be about some laundry. It says your dad has been out of town for 3 weeks and came home yesterday with 18 dirty dress shirts. You decide to wash your dad's shirts for him, but you know that only 12 shirts fit into the washing machine at one time. Calculate the number of possible ways you can clean your father's shirts. So what's going to happen here is you have to decide right off the bat if order is important. So most guys' dress shirts are all white or something very similar to white, and so they are all going to be able to go in at the same time. There's not going to be a light load and a dark load. And you have to decide if your shirt gets picked first or if it gets picked 12th, is it going to wreck a shirt or wreck your day or something like that? And in this case, it's certainly not. If it gets picked first or if it gets picked 12th, it's going into the washing machine, and you know what? They're all going to get mixed up. So in this case, I would say order does not matter. And that means that I would use a combination instead of a permutation. Next, we're going to fill in 2 smaller numbers. So for our 2 smaller numbers, what we're going to do right here is, once again, over here, we're going to have our total number of outcomes. There are 18 dirty shirts to choose from. And then here, what we're going to do is we're going to write down the number of shirts that we will choose. Once again, remember from our first video that sometimes when we see this letter, we think about it as the word choose. And we are going to be choosing 12 of those shirts. We can't choose all 18 because they won't fit in the washing machine. So when you're calculating this, this is going to be 18 factorial over 18 minus 12 factorial, and then another 12 factorial down there in the denominator. Because order does not matter and we use combination, this value will be a bit lower than it would have been if we would have used a permutation, and that's okay. That's totally fine. It's not that big of a deal. Also, please know that this button should be on your calculator as well. The permutation button, the combination button, and the factorial button are always grouped together, and if you have one, you've got the other 2 as well. So you should be able to find it pretty quickly and easily. When you do this calculation, there are going to be 8,564 different ways that you can launder these shirts. Next one. In this case right here, what you are is you're going to be part of a band, and your band has recorded 12 songs, and what you'd like to do is you'd like to release a 4-song demo. And so what you're going to do is you're going to choose from the songs you have available and maybe scrap the other ones or save them for some other type of release. So once again, the first important choice that you're going to make is order important? And in this case, I would argue that yes, order is important. It matters what song you put first. It better be a really good one, and it matters what song you put last. You can save maybe one of your weaker ones for last. So in this case, I would say, yes, order is important. You are going to want to use a permutation. So now after you've made that choice right here, now what you want to do is you want to fill in your smaller numbers. Total number goes here. We have 12 songs that are available to us, but we're going to be choosing 4 of them. Once again, 12 choose 4 or 12p4. After that choice has been made, now what you're going to do is you are going to be able to calculate. Once again, that is going to be 12 factorial over 12 minus 4 factorial. When you do this work, what you're going to end up with is 11,880 different demos that you could make. Now, if you argued, once again, hey, it doesn't matter. As long as you pick 4 songs, they're all going to be on the album, that's good enough. You may have thought a combination is a better choice. The setup would be very, very similar. It'd still be 12C4. But, once again, the number of demos would be smaller. There's only 495 different demos you would make for the combination. So now the thing about this is, even though it makes sense to you, when you're looking at these questions, you need to think about it the same kind of way that your teacher or the textbook or the SAT is thinking about it. And in this case, the SAT would want you to treat it as a permutation, with order being important, not a combination. So even though this might make a lot of sense to you, I want to get you used to the fact that sometimes other people might disagree with you, and I'd like to see if you can get yourself into the pattern of seeing it the same way that they do, so you can get those questions right on the SAT. All right, now down at the bottom of the page, what we have is we have a couple of you try it problems, and I'd like you to pause the video right here and see if you can answer those. Here are the answers to your you try it problems. I want you to notice that most of these are combinations except for the last one, which is a permutation. It is important for you to understand when order is not important and when order is important. This is video number 2, and I have one more video to go up as well with this.